welcome everybody to PEMA TV.
Welcome everybody to Friday, May 9th, 2014. And before I completely forget, happy Mother's Day.
Yep. And
happy birthday to my sister, whose birthday is Mother's Day. Gary.
Really?
Yes.
Just so everybody knows, Metaluna Boutique and Stones is doing quite well. Just getting some referrals out of Arkansas now, right?
Yes.
But for tonight, everybody, be sure and look online. We have all of your lovely candles are available.
Yes. I think the only one missing right at this exact moment is the 6-inch white.
Right. And these can you use for decoration, ritual, whatever you need them for, right?
They are unscented.
Unscented.
They are 2, 6, and 9 inches.
Awesome.
And
awesome.
I have 11 colors, so...
If you need it, it's there.
Right. There's a rainbow of colors.
And real quick, I didn't want to... I'm going to do this for me personally. I didn't want to scare everybody. I was diagnosed as being diabetic earlier this week. I know my posts have been all over the place on Facebook, so don't worry. I'm fine.
He's nuts. Just...
Well, that's nothing unusual there either, but just want to let everybody know I am okay. It's nothing to worry about. It's just life catching up with me. But other than that, I am grand. And here very, very soon, keep your eyes open for one more channel here on PEN. It's going to be coming from across the pond in the UK. So be very, very, just stick around. Just like I said in my last post, lead, follow, or get out of the way. But speaking of lead following or getting out of the way, we have a very, very good friend of ours that we're going to be talking with tonight.
Let's move back to the hometown.
Yeah, back to the homeland. Tonight we are talking with our very good friend, Steven LaChance. Steven, are you with us?
I'm with you. You know, next time we'll do this live and we'll put video on it.
Awesome.
After I get my house set up.
Yeah, like you mentioned earlier before we were off air, every time we do an interview, you move. So, you know, we
Yeah, I mean, that's what I told Annette today. I said, you know, every time I'm with them, I said, I just moved. I don't know what it is.
But you are back in the homeland. You are back in St. Louis proper.
Oh, I am in the proper, actually, right down in the middle of it all.
Yeah, got some great food down there too. I know we were talking about that there too. Oh, and if you happen to need a pizza, look for Pantera's and order a pizza called the Hunk.
Yes.
I know. I used to work for Pantera's when I was a teenager.
Okay, if you're from St. Louis,
I managed the one in Baton for a while.
Yeah.
I'm really familiar with Pantera's pizza.
Yeah.
My particular two misses are Slimo's and White Castle's.
White Castle, that's up on the corner too. That's all.
I know.
And from a Texan that had only really truly had a warm slider when we moved to St. Louis. I'd had them before, but they were cold. Remember?
Yes.
It kind of ruins it down here when you go to order it, and somebody says, "Well, would y'all like them all the way, y'all?" When they throw that y'all at the end of the order, that it kind of ruins it for the White
and you
Castle.
can't get the horsey mustard down here. Even in Tennessee, they put this Chipotle mustard in it instead of the horsey. You have to have the original. You have to get it from St. Louis.
Yeah.
Otherwise, why bother?
And welcome to Food Talk tonight, everybody.
You know, it's food talk. We can talk food all night when we start talking St. Louis food.
Yeah, you
Oh,
can.
heck yeah.
And the whole fact that nobody up there knows what a portion is.
We know what a portion is when you're done.
Yeah.
We did barbecue wings tonight, boneless wings for dinner.
Oh, where did you get them?
Wings to go. I think it was all right. It wasn't great, but it wasn't too bad. But we've been eating at Crusoe's down the street for till we got our refrigerator. So
now see, that's mean. But if you want the good wings, you need to go to Rich and Charlie's in Benton.
Yeah, true. But Ted Drew's, like we were talking about before, you just opened up yesterday. We were talking about that before the show started. Ted Drew's frozen custard is the best in the world.
Yes, it is.
There is no better.
It's only like what, 48% butterfat or something like that.
Oh my God, it's unbelievable, but
Yeah.
it's the most incredible stuff you've ever eaten in your life.
Yeah, it is like a little piece of heaven, and they will. And for those of you who don't know, it's called a concrete because they'll put it in the glass, and before they hand you the glass, they put a spoon in it, and they'll turn it upside down and hold it in front of you.
And pass it out the window, and if it drops, they buy your next two.
Yeah.
They buy your next one.
And
it
drops.
is the home of the original concrete. Other people say they have concrete, but St. Louis is the home of the concrete.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and Ted Drew's, the original one down on Watson's also been there for 80 years.
Yeah. Yeah. And it doesn't drop out, folks. Don't worry. They don't ever have to worry about it dropping out. I've never heard of anybody having it drop out.
Nope.
So, it's just cool that they do that.
It's never happened.
Well, you know, Stephen, the last time we were talking with you, you had The Blessed and the Wicked were coming out. Has that made it?
It's coming out in September.
September of this
8th.
year.
Huh?
It's coming out in September, but I thought it was coming out before that.
No, it's always been September 8th.
Oh, okay.
You know, at first, I think the last time I talked to you, they weren't set on a date. But September 8th was the date that they finally settled on. You work with publishers, you never know. I mean, you could have a book done, and they could hold on to that book for a good year or so, which, Blessed, you know, it's going to be about a year. They'll have it about a year and a half before they probably actually send it out. They wait until the moment's right for them.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, July? No, they're not going to put it out in July. They want it out for Halloween.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, and they'll wait until it's right for that Halloween. And this year they felt it was right, so it's coming out finally. They can't wait. Did you see the book cover?
Yes, I have. Actually, I think you have your newest graphics, and when I put it up there, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's a pretty awesome book cover. The first was The Uninvited was the man's eyes. This one's the female's eyes to give you an indication of how this one's going to go out. But you know, I think they match up pretty good. So
yeah.
You know, this is a continuation of The Uninvited.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. I did. I'm glad you mentioned that because now all our viewers will know. But yeah, I had known that was the continuation.
It starts immediately where The Uninvited left off. Absolutely where The Uninvited left off, except it's different in a lot of ways because you have that diary narrative that, you know, The Uninvited had. And you have the nightmares like The Uninvited had. But then we got something else in there that I used that I thought was important because to understand a haunting, you need to understand a whole lot of it. And some things go back in time to understand. So, you know, we go back all the way to 1969 in these flashbacks that we have throughout the book that explain how I went down this road, where this road led, and how we got to where we were, which is more information than you've ever gotten before.
Right.
And it really tells the story. And for those that, you know, had questions about the first book, you kind of read this one and you go, oh, no, I get it, you know. I understand what happened to them, why they ended up here, how they ended up going through what they ended up going through, and what happened afterwards, too, because a lot of people think that once that door closes on that haunting, it's completely over, and it's not. I think it was Lorraine Warren, after one of the big episodes, we were talking to her, and she said, you know, this is not over by far. And I didn't understand what she was saying because at that point, we were all jazzed about, okay, this is done, we thought it was over, you know, because we had just won a battle. You know, and it actually, she sent me kind of back, you know, when she said it. And it turned out she was right. She was absolutely right. And through the years, it became quite clear what she meant and how she meant it. And so we discussed some of that, too. The book is great. I can't wait for you guys to read it. I really can't.
So 1969, you were what, 2?
1969, I was 4 years old.
Okay.
I was 4 years old. It goes all the way back to the age of 4. I just told you how old I am. I'm going to be 50 in January.
Well, I turned 51 in March, so we're the same age, basically.
Yeah, we really are. You know, so yeah, you know, it's there's some memories that came to fruition. You know, around that time, and one of them is how do you deal with death when you learn that death is a real thing. And it's part of a discussion that happens within the book, and I can't exactly tell you why. I don't want to give it away. But it goes back to an uncle of mine who was dying of cancer, and what I remember from that time and how it affected me, which connects into the later life, when something else happens.
Would you? I know, and Stephen, I know you've been on several panels, and we have a mutual, really good friend that people don't know is Tim Yancey, who's also survived an extremely violent haunting. And I know he's talked about this before, but would you say anybody that has survived a situation like the two of you have, does it leave a scar? It leaves a scar on you, either emotionally, physically, or mentally. I mean, it leaves a scar on you for the rest of your life, doesn't it? I mean, you always will remember what happened.
Well, yeah, you try to think it does, and you try to say, I'm completely over that. It's the brave side that comes through.
Right.
But the truth is, I'll give you an example. Here we are moving into a new house. The first night in the new house, you don't sleep.
Right.
Right.
You don't. Because what you're waiting for is every sound. You're waiting for that moment that's going to happen, which happened to you before, where you're picking up and you're running in the middle of the night. I mean, there's no other way to say it.
Right.
So that first night is a very traumatic, and a lot comes back to you in that first night when you're living in a new house. Especially this one, because this one I had a lot of questions about. Because I've been in it a bunch, and Elliot had been in it a bunch, and we were real comfortable here. But it is 100 years old. So, there was, that thought was, after I bought it, and it looks, it's like a brand new house in some ways, and in ways it's like an old house. And, all of a sudden that hit me. It's like, it didn't bother me that it was 100 years old till I lay down to go to sleep in it. And then it's like all of a sudden, damn, this place is 100 years old.
Yeah.
What am I doing? And then, of course, everything was fine. Which it usually is. Everything is usually fine. However, there's that part of you that wants to go back there and remember what had happened to you when it wasn't fine, when you were waking up in the middle of the night and seeing different apparitions come by your bedroom door, or, seeing your child be chased out wherever, from whatever, by whatever. All that stuff comes back to you pretty quick.
Well, quite frankly, you and I both know that in St. Louis, we don't tear anything down, we reuse it. So, 100-year-old houses, for our viewers, is not out of the norm in St. Louis?
Not out of the norm at all. I would say in the neighborhood that I live in, every single house here is of a different architecture. It's kind of cool. And you know what I'm talking about, because you've lived here.
Absolutely.
Everything is a different architecture, but they're all about 100, 150 years old. They're all renovated. But you just look down the street and you just get this feeling, man, of being back in time. I mean, it just doesn't feel like you're in the current time when you step through some of these streets. All the homes are usually made out of brick, which ours is. The red brick, St. Louis is known for their red brick homes and their World's Fair homes, which I looked at one of those too, while we were looking at a house, but that was way too much house. It was 3,800 square feet.
Yeah.
I got to the top floor, Kevin. I started shaking. I was like, and she looked at me, and she's the real estate agent, and her name was Kim DeLab. She was great. She looked at me and she goes, "Too much house for you?" And I'm like, "Way too much house for me." I'm like, "Let's cut that down by at least 1,800 square feet, please."
Right. Well,
but it was gorgeous. It was gorgeous, man. If I had room enough, if I had a reason for that much room, yeah. But it was just incredible. But St. Louis, yeah, we renovate everything and we try to save everything. And I think that's one of the unique things about this city.
Also,
well, and your house is 100 years old. The neighborhood's basically 100, 150. But the World's Fair was 1904, so that was only 110 years ago.
Right.
So
right.
the house, the World's Fair houses aren't any older. They're just a lot bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're just huge.
Well,
they're huge. I mean, when you see one of those, you know it. I mean, they're just huge.
And Stephen, I think you'll back me up on this. St. Louis, as far as if you start taking about metropolitan areas that have a lot of paranormal activity, St. Louis is top 5, no matter who you talk to.
Actually, we were
Well,
the
you know,
top
the funny
10
thing
for-
is I live down the street, not too far from the Exorcist Hospital, from where the boy was with the Exorcist case.
Election
So,
Brothers.
I mean,
It was
go on, kid, I'm sorry.
It was Election Brothers Hospital.
Yeah, it was Alexian Brothers. They tore down the wing now, but you know, it happened. However, the chapel that connected the two wings is still standing where they used to take the boy down as well, which is interesting. Come and see me talk this year, and we'll talk exorcism. Because I was one of the first investigators to do a lot of those locations.
Yeah.
Some of the locations some of the research you saw on Haunted Boy was actually mine. But I actually be showing pictures of a place that no one's ever seen before. That a priest was housed until the time of his death. And once he died, they cleared a whole floor of a hospital, and no one is ever going to be there again.
And
Let's just put it that way.
That's Dr. That is Father William Boder.
Well, some say it was. Some say it was. The other thought is that it's the if you read the case and stuff, there was the father that went in every day and he read the boy's story. And as the demon possessed the boy would whisper to him and tell him things about his future. Scared him to half to death. The idea is that, you know, William Peter Blatty wasn't far off when he said that the demon jumped into a priest. He got that from somewhere, you know.
Right.
And the thought is that exorcism case is actually what happened at the end of it, and it's never been really publicized. Anybody that's from St. Louis has always heard that story. It's like the Holy Grail. I've been to the Holy Grail.
yeah.
One of the guys who was on my team when we were up in St. Louis, his friend actually bought the house the boy lived in prior to the exorcism.
The one in Normandy?
Yes.
Yeah, and that, you know, that's a location that I kind of stayed away from on purpose. You know, I feel that, you know, that's a case that people probably shouldn't mess with. And I've seen the people that have messed with it. I know when I was doing my research, you know, was right before the Union case went to pieces. Right before we ended up under oppression and possession. Was that part of it? Could be. Who knows? But I also seen other friends that have tried to do the research there and have horrible things happen to them. Their lives fall apart. Health issues come in, and you know. And there's one friend of mine that I keep telling him to stay away from there. And every time he doesn't stay away from there, something does happen, and I'm really worried every time that he tries to take that step toward there.
Right. Do you remember back in the early 80s when they tried tearing down the wing of Alexian Brothers?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was there's stories about the actual construction workers seeing things. They actually at first had trouble taking the wing down, and then was it a black mist, a black cat they saw run out of there at one point? There were some different things that I've heard. How about you, Kim?
Well, I remember seeing the newsreels on it, and they started out with a medicine ball, and when they swung it at the building, it would swing away from that room, and it did it three times that I know of.
It would not go through. That's what I had heard. And then once they were able to pierce the building, something came out of it. And I don't remember if it was a black mist, a black cat, a black. You know, I have to go back and look at the research.
It was a black mist that they said came out in the form of a large black cat, which some
there you go.
Some said
I had it right.
like a panther type size, but
right.
black cat.
Yeah, it was big.
But what had happened was that they couldn't hit that particular area with the medicine ball, so they had to go in and put in explosives. So when the explosive went off and popped the wall, that's when that smoke came out.
Right.
But they can't explain why it came out in that form or just in that particular spot as opposed to the rest of the detonations they had put in the building.
Have you been back since they torn it down?
Yeah, it's weird looking.
The crack in the parking lot. Have you ever seen the crack in the parking lot they can't fill?
Yep.
Yeah. It's in the same vicinity as where the boys' room was.
Yes.
There's a crack in the asphalt, and they repair it, and the next day it's cracked again. They cannot repair this. So it's kind of strange.
Well, and there's all kinds of stories, especially around St. Louis. I know there's guys that had told me when I was running the liquor warehouse there in St. Charles, when they first tried to install the light rail system there in St. Louis, there was at least one cemetery that they didn't. Let's put it this way: they didn't make a very good effort to try to move it. So they get all the rails laid down. Every time they've ever tried to drive a train through there, it shuts off on that section of track.
Wow.
And it'll coast until it hits the rest of the power, and it goes back on no matter what they do. So there's sections of track for the light rail system that probably don't show up on any kind of rail maps anymore, but they're still there, but they don't work. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff, and then that's not even talking about the stuff that's in Alton across the river.
Well, and I went to Roosevelt High School. It's built on top of a cemetery.
Yeah.
I have a location that I'm wanting to do really, really bad. That's in St. Louis, and it's downtown St. Louis. I'll talk about it. I don't care. It's called the People's Hospital.
Right?
Now, the People's, yeah, can you imagine?
Oh, you get in that place, call me. I will drive the 12 hours to show up.
I'm going to get into this place if it kills me. The People's Hospital was where it was the only Afro-American hospital that would accept colored people in the city of St. Louis. It ran from like 18 something to 1930 something. But anyway, it's very haunted. The building still stands. People are afraid of it. Urban crawlers that hit that building regret they hit it because of the paranormal activity in there. Because there were some very, very violent deaths that came through that hospital. And there's a lot of violent stories that surround it. But that's one of the locations that I'm dying to do. And I will be doing it now that I live here.
Well,
again. I should say again.
And the old city hospital would be phenomenal.
Well, you know what they did to the old city hospital? Now we got to talk. The old city hospital, they turned into apartments.
Well, they were working on it when we still lived there. But they hadn't got it seemed like for 2 or 3 years there, every time they'd get all their ducks in a row, something else would come into zoning to where it was stopping it.
Yeah, well, they finally managed to do it. I can't imagine anybody crazy enough to live there. Just the look of this building, people would tell you, oh my God, this place is haunted.
Right. We've
get the vibe from it.
Any kid who grew up in St. Louis can tell you that place is haunted, even if it's
right.
just heading down to the old Busch Stadium to go to the Shriner Circus. You pass that place, it's creepy.
It's creepy as hell. And it's like, are you kidding me? You people are living there? What are you thinking? I'm like, I don't get that, but okay.
Yeah, could you imagine
people?
Could you imagine the poor people who got the morgue room apartment?
Oh, I know. It's just, I can't imagine living there. I can't imagine whatever would possess you. The only thing that I can think of people that would live there are people that didn't grow up here.
Right.
Period.
Well,
they had to be people that didn't grow up there that saw that building the way we saw it when we were kids.
Maybe they were sold as corporate apartments to where when people come into town because it's not too far from downtown.
I have to look that up and see what they're doing there. I know there are apartments on there. People are renting them, and that's craziness.
Well, that would make sense to me, them not living in the city, but if they need a place to go, the corporate we'll put you up in our apartments, not telling you it used to be the creepiest hospital in the world.
Well, and a lot of people need to understand too that it's a well-known theory that one of the things that attracts paranormal activity is moving water. And in the United States, other than the big bodies of water that are like on the coastlines, you don't get a much bigger moving body of water than the Mississippi.
And the
Plus,
Missouri.
you have all the caverns underneath the city of St. Louis
Yeah.
that have the running water that goes through underneath the city itself.
Yeah.
You know, and you remember the Lent Mansion and the Lent Brewery. I
Yep.
mean, there's parts of those caverns, those Lent caverns, that you have to wear air masks to even go down to.
Well, that's Anheuser too. My grandparents lived 6 blocks from Anheuser-Busch's world headquarters.
Right.
So you've
I
got
used to
all
think that
that.
was Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. Remember
Well,
those big,
you know,
big wrought iron gates? They used to, I was looking over there the other day to see if they had them, and I couldn't see it. And I used to, when I was a kid, I thought, you know, Willy Wonka was going to come out of there.
They still have those great big gates. But see, I didn't get the fun of making it Willy Wonka because they live so close. In the summer, I could smell that yeast.
Did you? But you know what? But you know that was a disappointment. You know, it's they have cleaners on that now. They have cleaners on that so you don't smell it. You know, when I was a kid, you know, you smelled that all over South St. Louis. I mean, that was one of the things that you grew up with. And you loved that smell. Didn't you like that smell?
I absolutely hated that smell.
You did? Really? I can just talking about it, I can smell it.
Well, I can't even drink a beer to this day because of that smell.
Oh, really? I used to love that smell. And, you know, one of the disappointments to me was, you know, that, you know, that was 20 years ago when we moved back.
Right.
You know, I was like, where's the smell? But they put cleaners on it. You don't smell it anymore.
Well, if you do the tour and you go into I can't remember, it's right before you get to the bottling room. There's an upstairs and it has the original brass sinks in it. You can still smell that smell inside that room.
Oh, wow.
Because as soon as we hit that room, I'm the first one out the door on the other side because I don't like the smell.
It's a smell that I always liked. You know.
But on the other hand, it is something we grew up with. It's a childhood memory. If you smell that smell, you know you're back in St. Louis.
Yeah, and it brings you back to, you know, a certain place, maybe a certain time even. You know what's funny is I'll be driving down the street or we'll be going someplace and I'll see something and it'll trigger a memory. Like I was walking up the street the other night with Elliot, and I can remember walking up a city street much like it with my mother singing a song to her.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I had to be about 3 or 4 years old. And, you know, and it's just so crazy because this is home. You know, this is really home because I grew up in, you know, they always say, well, you grew up in Washington, Missouri. No, I really didn't. I grew up in St. Louis until I was 12 years old, and then they took me to Washington, Missouri, which was a shock, trust me. But, you know, so this is home. So this is where those childhood memories are triggered that are very important. And it's kind of funny because the more I'm around and the more I go places that are familiar, those things are coming back. I'm looking forward to going down to Soulard, and I haven't been down there in a long time. And to the Globe Drug down there too, where I used to go with my grandmother.
Get socks. When you go down to Soulard, get socks.
They have the best socks.
I'm serious. They're at the very end of the far, because you know it's stalls building, and then there's more stalls.
Right.
The very back side. There's a guy that
on the right,
on the right hand side, on the very end, he sells nothing but like underwear and socks. And they're like the thick. I used to work in a freezer, so I had to have the thick socks. Best socks I ever found in the world for I got like 10 pairs for $1 or something. It was outrageous, but it was so cheap. But yeah, you can get socks. I could have gotten a Peking. We could have gotten a Peking duck, a gooey butter cake, socks, and a watermelon all at the same place.
All in the same place. You can't beat that now.
No.
Gooey butter cake and your socks in the same place. Plus Peking duck. Come on.
Well, and a bouquet of flowers for Mom.
And a hamster if you wanted to. Because there's still a pet shop in there.
Yes.
Or at least the last time we were there, there was still a pet shop in there.
No, there's still a pet shop there.
Yeah.
But you had mentioned earlier how it's weird when you look down the street and it doesn't seem like you're in this era anymore.
Right.
For growing up there, you always remember Halloween most of all. But it's always that.
You know, it's funny you're saying that because I was just telling Elliot that the other night we were walking home from Crusoe's because Crusoe's is real close to us, and we were walking home, and I said, just wait till fall.
Yeah.
And he's like, what? And I'm like, just wait till fall. Wait till around Halloween time. It is beautiful.
Yeah.
Well,
you know,
and
I mean, you can't. I don't think I've ever been to any place more beautiful in the fall than this place.
well, in the movie Meet Me in St. Louis, when they do the Halloween section, that's the Halloween in St. Louis is exactly like that movie, as far as the eeriness and the roads and the darkness and the whole Halloween atmosphere.
Yeah. You know, you can't describe it to someone until they have to experience it. It's not something you can describe, but it really does. It really is kind of old world in that way.
And not to offend anybody, but you also have a winning baseball team there. That helps.
Well, of course we do.
They used to have T-shirts at Soulard that said St. Louis is a drinking town with a baseball problem.
Yeah, all right. Anytime any of the sports do well, that would be the hockey, baseball, or football. The Budweiser rolls in the street.
To be honest
You'll
with
find it in the gutters.
you, Kim and I have been together for almost 14 years now. And the first time she took me to St. Louis, every restaurant we went into had Budweiser and Bud Light. I could have, if somebody had told me that they weren't actually in a keg, that they were just plumbing it over there, I'd have believed it. I mean, it's just in everywhere.
Every corner is. How do they say, Kim? Every corner there's a tavern, and every middle of the street is a church.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
That's St. Louis. I mean, you know, it's like I have a church up the street from us, and then there's the tavern, and then down the street we have a bar. I mean, it's and one has the big Budweiser thing around the front of it. You know, that's St. Louis. I mean, you know, it's a drinking town. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
And Catholic churches. Every third corner, there's a Catholic church.
Every third corner. When we were walking up the street the other day, and I looked over, and there was a statue of St. Anthony, and St. Anthony's holding the baby, like always. Except St. Anthony, somebody had sawed his head off. And so there's a statue of the Tesla St. Anthony holding this baby, and it was the creepiest thing you ever saw. You know, and it was like, Ellie, get a picture of that real quick.
Well, and people need to. One thing that Kim introduced me to when we lived there was Calvary Cemetery, because Calvary and Cemetery is like 12 acres.
And Bell Fountain.
And Bell Fountain Neighbors, which is just, it's like it used to be one big cemetery, and then they put a road in the middle of it and had to name it two different things.
Right.
But they're both like 12 acres of both. There's the oldest cemetery west of the Mississippi, right?
Yeah, family buried there.
Well, actually, and the priest from The Exorcist, that was the only thing I could have added to y'all's conversation earlier, was the fact that I've been there and took pictures of the burial site.
And Tennessee Williams and
George
Tecumseh Sherman are all buried on the Calvary side.
And on the Calvary side also has all the, not only does it have the Lutheran ministers and ministry that's buried over there, but they also have like the Jesuits, and you have the Catholic priests and the Catholic nuns are all in separate, and then just the stonework that's over there is, oh my God.
You know, to see the mausoleums and things in Calvary and Bell Fountain is pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's amazing, and it's quiet. It's in the middle of an urban area, quote unquote. It's not an area that's been reclaimed yet. Let's put it that way.
Used to be down the street from Hostess Bakery.
Yep.
But you go in there once you get.
I remember Hostess Bakery.
Once you get past that gateway and get over like the first hill and get down to where the actual plots start, it's quiet. You couldn't hear anything from around there. That was the creepiest thing that happened there for me.
My grandparents are both of my grandparents are buried in Calvary.
Wow.
But
I couldn't find them. I mean, I don't think I could find them. I really don't. My parents would probably be able to, but you get buried in Calvary. Your loved ones might not come and see you ever again. I mean,
yeah. Well, unless you had like a flashing red light put on top of your stone or something.
you would need something.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, sure.
Actually, they have an office now that's open 6 days a week to where you can go in and give them names and they can give you the exact plots and directions.
Well,
Yeah.
because it's so big. I mean, it's just so incredibly big.
Yeah.
Well, and another famous person who was buried there that a lot of people down here don't really connect with, but we do, was Dred Scott.
Mm-hmm. The Dred Scott King, of course.
Yeah.
He was buried in Calvary, but then moved when his wife passed so he could be with her.
And St. Louis has so much history because it is the oldest town west of the Mississippi, other than New Orleans, but that was settled by the French and the Spanish 100 years before St. Louis was. And then you've got all the missions and stuff out in California, but other than that, St. Louis is the oldest town. It was a crossing over point.
That's why it's the gateway to the West.
And absolutely, and it's it's the U.S.'s best kept secret as far as the city goes. I
Yeah.
believe. I really do. I mean, people, do not realize what a great place this is to live.
The funny thing,
Listen, folks, I lived at the beach and I came back.
well, the funny thing is, when I first moved down here, one of my friends, I was showing her, a travel thing for St. Louis, and she honestly thought that it was nothing but farms in St. Louis.
Really?
They because when the newscasters and everybody talk in Chicago or Kansas City, they never mention St. Louis here.
They don't. They don't.
Well, except-
Kansas City's such a blip on the map compared to St.
Yeah.
Louis. St. Louis is a very, very large place.
Well, and then on top of that, the only time they really talk about St. Louis is when you get to the World Series. But I didn't say that. Let me back off on that.
The world. What you mean when we lose it?
Well, there is
yeah,
the
but hey,
occasional Super Bowl too.
well,
just saying.
once a decade.
Hey,
We're almost, which means we're due.
There's rumors that we might be contenders this year.
Well, did you see the size of that offensive tackle that they picked up in the first round?
Absolutely, I
Oh, my
did. That's what I'm
God.
talking about.
woo!
I bet Steven Jackson wishes he was still there. That's all I'm going to. That's all I'm going to say.
I bet he does. I bet he does. Because I mean that defense is going to be one to be reckoned with now.
Yep. And now you've got Bradford's blind side covered. He might be able to actually throw something. So who knows? It's going to be an interesting year this year.
Well, the thing is that's the question everybody has. Is there's this when you talk about Sam Bradford. This is a paranormal show. Listen to this guy. When you talk about Sam Bradford, there's a big question mark whether he can handle it or not. Because up to this point, he hasn't. But these people in St. Louis have this undying faith in him.
Yeah.
I can't believe it. Last year, the year before, I'm yelling, new quarterback.
Right.
But what did they just? He stood up with Fisher the other night, and Fisher said, "Sam Bradford's our quarterback." Those people stood up and gave him a standing ovation.
Yeah. Well, and
they're behind this quarterback, so hopefully he'll produce now that we've given him the tools to produce with.
Yeah, and Aikman went through the same thing. A lot of people don't remember that. Troy Aikman's first 3 years, he spent looking out that hole in Texas stadiums.
Well, that's Texas.
Right.
That's the wrong team.
Oh, I know, but I'm just saying.
That's a good example, though.
Yeah.
It's a good example.
But I would like to point out, last time you were on this particular paranormal show, we spent a good part of the time discussing your granddaughters. So we have no bars here.
We always talk about anything, don't we?
Yeah.
That's why I always like doing your show. It's like you never know what we're going to talk about.
Well, and and it's good. Maybe it's good that we spend this show today, and we talk about St. Louis because, like you said, it's a gym that not a lot of people know about. And
Right.
and one thing I will say is there's a lot of activity that goes on up there, and people just don't want to. You don't. I don't know whether people don't want to hear it, or like you said, they just want to go to all the more advertised, Waverly Hills, and even Old South Pittsburgh Hospital to a certain degree. They want to go to these publicized places that all the other TV shows have been to. But what they need to figure out is if you're in the St. Louis area, you need to be looking at home because I'm going to guarantee you're going to get more activity there than you will going to Waverly or almost anywhere
Go
else.
to the neighborhood parks. I grew
Yeah.
up right across the street from Tower Grove Park. That place is crazy.
You can't Tower Grove Park is haunted as hell, isn't
Yeah.
it? That's when, see, when I lived in St. Louis 20 years ago, that's where we lived, was Tower Grove.
Yeah, I lived on Morganford and Arsenal.
You know where I lived? I lived on Flat.
Really?
Yeah.
I know exactly where you were.
I was in that top block near the, near Grand. You know, where the, Jack in the Box is.
Yep. I know exactly where you're at. I went to man's school.
Yeah, but that's where we lived when we were there. And Tower Grove Park was extremely haunted. Not only that, not just the crime.
Right?
Right.
You don't want to be sitting there at night, but
No.
but still, you know, even the crime there is just incredible. And they, you know, that's why they have so much security in there at night.
Yeah.
But it's really haunted as well. That whole area. Actually, there's something in Blessed that talks about me living there, and it talks about me coming across probably what would be my first ghost. But being as stubborn as I was back then, I didn't realize what it was. I woke up in the middle of the night, and I had an old slave woman standing at the end of the bed, and she was putting her finger to her mouth, and she was going, shh.
Wow.
And I woke, you know, and I thought I was dreaming, you know, that sort of thing, and I shook myself, and then she was gone. And I always thought, you know, at that point I thought, well, I was dreaming. Now I know better. Now, you know, looking with the life I've had and all of the fun stuff I've been through, I guess you could say,
Yeah.
that I look at that and go, you know what? Even back then I was susceptible to these things and to seeing them and didn't realize it. But yeah, you know, so I talk about that pretty in depth in the book. In Blessed, that's one of the flashbacks we talk about. Because I think it's important because, you know, it's like people saying, well, were you ever haunted before? And it's like, well, no, not really, but yeah, maybe, you know. Because at that point in my life, I wasn't willing to accept what was going on. I wasn't willing to accept what was being set up around me. There was a whole lot of stuff going on around me, but the thing is I didn't want to admit to it. I always found reasons to push it off to something else. And the truth of the matter was I was on a very dark road even back then.
Well, the strange thing is, and I've mentioned it on our show a few times, is I saw my first full body in the same neighborhood when I was 8 years old, and it was a lady who lived next door that had passed away 2 weeks earlier.
Wow.
And I was 8.
It was in the same neighborhood?
Yes.
See, we're kindred spirits, I'm telling you.
We are. And if you can get past security in Tower Grove Park late at night, I know where the best night crawlers are to go fishing.
Yeah, well, you know, I used to know the head of security there, but he quit just recently. So no, I don't know who it is now, so it would be a little difficult to get in there at night. But
Yeah, I mean,
they'll catch you.
but you know, that's the thing is, I don't ever hear anybody talking about like parts of Central Park that might be haunted, and you don't hear anybody. Well, if you live in Chicago, God bless you, bless your little pea-picking hearts. But you don't hear about people talking about outdoor things in Chicago that are haunted either.
St. Louis, everything is.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost like the difference between living in a normal area and living in Chernobyl. Because I mean,
Yeah, I think you know. Yeah, that's the thing. It's, you know, there's no question about it. I mean, around you, it's definitely a spiritual place. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. That's a very good word for it, I think.
Well, and when people say, how did you get into this? We grew up in this.
Yeah.
It's not that we had a choice. St. Louis is its own entity.
Well, you know, when I lived here as a child, you know, when I was born, John Zappis always told me, because you lived in a haunted house when you were young, you just didn't know it. I'm like, no, I didn't. He goes, always. He goes, I'm telling you, every single one of these cases I've ever worked that have been to this point of an extreme, he goes, have had people that have lived in a haunted house when they were younger.
Mm-hmm.
I said, no, I'm not. So one night, I was sitting there talking to my mother and father, and my mother and father, and my mom goes, you know, we lived in a haunted when you were a baby. And I looked at her and I said, what? She goes, yeah. She goes, we used to hear her come up the back stairs and there'd be no one there. And then we would go into your bedroom and we would find you tucked in. And I was like, really? And so I went to John and I'm like, son of a bitch, John, you were right. You know, I couldn't believe it. I was like, you're absolutely right. I lived in a haunted house. But that was in this area as well. You know, and, you know, so, you know, I can remember getting yelled at one Christmas, I guess maybe 3 or 4, for knocking the Christmas tree down, but I remember the Christmas tree coming down on me.
Yeah.
You know, without me touching it. That sort of thing.
When I worked over on Arsenal and Hampton,
Mm-hmm.
we had a townhouse there, and up on the second floor, I was going into the room for something, and the dresser did that to me. The dresser just came over on top of me as I walked past it. But like I said, it's St. Louis. We kind of grew up used to that kind of weird stuff, so we didn't pay a lot of attention to it.
And I think that's what it was, is that we didn't pay attention to it. We were taught not to pay attention to it, because even our adults didn't pay attention to it. It was like, okay, whatever. You know, and I think that's the attitude that happened to our generation, that we learned that it actually worked against us in a way, because when we got older, we had that same attitude. You know, you didn't pay attention to it, or you ignored it, you know, or if you did pay attention to it, you didn't ignore it, you found a good excuse for it, because that's what we saw the older generation do when they were living in the middle of all this. They weren't like us, who were more savvy to the paranormal. I mean, they didn't talk about ghosts. So what are they going to do? How are they going to handle it? Well, they're going to ignore it, pretend it doesn't happen, or make believe that there's something else going on. You know, and that's the only thing that I can figure. I think maybe it did us kids that were St. Louis kids that grew up as adults. Maybe that's why we were so determined when things really started happening in our adult lives, that we looked at it and we did the same thing as our parents did, really, which was, you know, that is nothing.
But
that didn't happen. You know, that's the boogeyman in the basement, or this is that. You know, just grow up, handle it. It's nothing. You know, because those are the tools that our parents gave us, bad or good. That's how we grew up. You know, and then so it's been a generation change with our children. Now with our children, we say, yeah, those things do happen. Yeah, it's okay when that happens. Yeah, you're going to see something like this. And yeah, it is scary. You know, and that's how we deal with it. You know, a little bit different than our parents. But it took us a long time to get to that, I think. And I don't think we're the only ones. I think the rest of that generation that grew up in the city has gone through that with their children. And I bet if we did, if we gathered a bunch of people our age from this area, we would find out that most of them, that's how they handled things.
Well, do you think to a point, though, that made us better debunkers?
Yeah, that's the thing. You know, it's funny because I always say this to people. I'm like, I'm a bigger skeptic now than I was when I began this journey. But I think it did, because I think we knew what the real thing was. We came in contact with these real things pretty early on. The sense, you know, you can just sense, and I don't know if you're like this. I know I found that I'm like this. I can just sense bullshit.
Right.
I know when it's there, and I know when it's in front of me. You know, I'm not going to go out and I'm not going to do a campaign on who's full of shit and who's not. But I'm just going to tell you, there's a lot of people that are.
Oh, yeah.
I know who they are. You know, and because it's a feeling. I get the feeling. If I'm with somebody, in a matter of 5 minutes, I can tell you if they're telling me the truth or not. And I think it's because of those experiences. I think you're right. I've never thought of it that way.
Well, I'm sorry, but it also comes out that way because we're from the show me state. We are the skeptical state.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know, that even though that kind of sort of steals my thunder, I'm gonna go with that anyway.
Sorry.
But what I was gonna say is, you know, Missouri is called the show me state. But do you think, and as corny as this is gonna sound, Do you think that's why there are so many strong? Because let's face it, getting an EVP at a location is one thing. Having any kind of telekinetic activity, whether it's scratching, pushing, objects moving, is a much stronger haunting. Okay, do you think that could really seriously you think you could trace back the nickname from Missouri or that phrase back to the fact that there has always been that much paranormal activity around?
Very well could be. I mean, who knows? I did the Blues Brothers. I did the Blues Brothers the first time they came here. I can remember Christopher looking at me and he goes, "What in the world?" He's like, "This is the most haunted place I've ever been in." And he's right. And maybe it has to do something with the show me state. I don't know, but it is. I mean, it definitely is. I have a feeling it has something to do with our preservation. I have a feeling it has something to do with our respect for things that are old, that we make our old new. Yeah. And I think that's probably the key to why it's so haunted.
And for all you kiddies out there, if you do go investing in the St. Louis area, don't provoke. Just saying. Just let me throw that out there.
Yeah, it's
not a smart idea.
Especially up there.
This is not a place you want to provoke. Yeah. Definitely not.
No, because there are old things in St. Louis. Very, very old things in St. Louis. They've had a lot of time to think about what they wanted to do. So careful what you ask for and what you do when you go up there. But you should do that anywhere you go anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, this is definitely a place that you don't. If you go out and if you do investigate this place, that's a place you want to play around. I have a feeling, and I said that, you know what, here comes that phrase again, and I've said this to a lot of people that have come here, and we went to different places, and it's like, and invariably I say don't to someone. I remember doing this at the Morse Mill.
Right.
Yeah.
I went out there, because, being the first investigator there, I knew a lot about the Morse Mill when I went out there. So I go out there one night just to see how things go, because I hadn't been there in a while, and there's a team going in. And this guy's like, "I can't wait to get in there. I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that." And he's a big guy like I am. And I'm looking at him. I said, "Don't you provoke." I'm like, "Don't go in there and start pushing your way around with this because you'll regret it." He went in there and started pushing his way around. They found him on the front porch crying later in the night because what had happened is that it had locked him into a room and pinned him up against the wall and wouldn't let him go.
Yep. Absolutely. But everybody who goes in there gets warned. There is a big guy down in the basement. Do not mess with him or he will get you back.
Well, I saw Sean Lycum, another big guy. Sean Lycum in the basement of the Morse Mill Hotel. I saw that guy picked up and thrown against the wall. Mm-hmm. And I mean picked up and thrown. And I've never seen somebody so scared in my life as I saw the look on his face as he went flying through the air.
Absolutely. We were there at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, still sunny, still bright, still really nice day, right around Thanksgiving. A team comes in. They weren't there 5 minutes. One of the guys popped off with something. 2 minutes later, he's laying in the hallway with scratches down both ends of his back.
Yeah. And I've warned people about that place. I'm like, that place, and they were like, "Oh, it's demonic." And I'm like,
No.
You just got a really pissed off human being that lived once, that's in that place. It's just really, really angry.
Yeah.
And you know what? I've always thought that it was Bertha's husband. She killed her first victim in the Morse Mill Hotel.
I would totally agree with that.
Have you been to the cemetery to see Bertha?
Yes, and I love the fact that she is buried. She is completely surrounded by all of her victims. She cannot.
Where's her first husband buried?
He is on, when you're looking at the gravestones, he is on her left side. Her second,
that's her second husband.
Okay.
Her first husband's buried at her feet.
Really? The way they have the tombstone set when we were out there, he was on the left and the second husband was on the right.
He's buried at her feet. He really literally is at her feet.
Well, this stone may be to her left, but his body is at her feet.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I'm telling you. He's at her feet.
Wow.
So the thing is would you want to be buried underneath below, think about it, below at the feet of the woman that killed you.
And back from that time period, yeah. Mindset totally
There's
different.
a lot to say about the dynamic there,
Yeah.
you know, because you're dealing with you know the man-woman thing. You know, he was the master of his wife and his home and everything. You know how it was back then.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
And she kills him, and then you bury him at her feet. Well, they buried her actually above it.
Right.
But, you know, yeah. You know, no wonder you got stuff going on there.
Absolutely. Well, and you've got the limestone, and you've got the river, and. I mean, it's in a perfect location.
I spent a week filming in there, and I got to tell you, and we were the first investigators in there ever. You know, we were the guinea pigs.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent a week in there, and I mean, we stayed there for a week. No running water.
Right.
You know, the toilet was outside. You know, campfire at night. You know, generators when we had enough fuel for generators. You know, it was the week before Thanksgiving, 2009. It was colder than it was colder than cold. But we spent a week in there, and the amount of activity that came out of that building was phenomenal.
Same with us. That Morse Mills was our first true location type investigation.
And I would like to mention it was November of 2009 too.
Yep, we were there right before Thanksgiving.
You were there the week before we were.
Uh-huh. Because he was opening it up right after we left.
Right.
To the public, you know, because he wanted us to do the film first. So we did the film. Film was what the film was. I mean, there's a lot of cool things to it. If you ever see it, there's a lot of cool things to it. One of the cool things is we never tell you what the EVPs are saying. You got to use your own imagination. But you know, it was the first film I ever did, so you know, it looks like a college film in a way.
Well.
Yeah, but you also have to take into consideration the location, the way it's built, the way it's set up, and then you've got the whole creepy doll thing going on in the top floor,
and the slamming of doors everywhere.
Yes.
Yes.
That unsettles you. I mean, when you're there in the middle of the night, and all of a sudden those doors start slamming, and you know, you can't describe that feeling of how it is. I was upstairs on the second floor one night, and I had a young boy with me. He was a teenager. He was I forgot his name. He was a really good investigator though. He rolled a musket ball down the hall because he called me up and he said, "Steven, I want you to see this." So he rolled a musket ball down the hall, and I'm standing there and I'm waiting for the musket ball to come back because that's what was going on. He'd roll it down, the ball would come back. And then so we rolled it down, we waited. It never came back. And I took a step, and the musket ball was under my foot. Never heard it come back. It was kind of crazy. But that building, you could play all kinds of games with it all night long.
Yeah, but you have to be careful because on that second floor, there's also that door that opens up and drops 2 stories.
Yeah, it does. You gotta know where you're at, what you're doing, and that's one of the things I worry about him touring that building for, because there's a lot in that building you can get hurt.
Well, and I know he had one specifically down in the kitchen, what was kitchen dining area with that great big fireplace. I mean, if you redid all that, that could be so just awesome to go hang out in. But other than the spirits of Al Capone and a few other things that are down there, you've got that huge hole where the cistern used to be. And he had plate steel over it when we were there.
And I still got an EVP out of it.
Yeah. Oh, we got the creepiest EVP we've ever collected from there.
That was actually the dance hall.
Yeah, yeah.
It was also the gambling room.
Yeah. And just to show you how I am, Steven, I walked down there into that area. I walked back in there and sat in that room behind that fireplace for about 45 minutes by myself.
The one that had the school desk in it.
Yeah, the one with the school desk in it. Yeah.
Yeah, I know where you were sitting.
Yeah, I walked in there and sat down, never had any feelings. I mean, of course, you're in a dark room in the middle of everywhere, but as soon as we got there, the thing about our trip there, because we've never been a believer in provoking, we've always been respectful. We actually left. We actually left early
Yeah, we left like 5 hours early.
Because we just didn't think we were getting anything, and it felt like being at Grandma's. It was just calm. It was very quiet. You know, and then we go home, and like I said, it was our first major investigation at a location. And then we go home and start reviewing data, and it's like, oh my goodness! And I think we got 12 total EVPs from there.
Right.
One of them.
Oh my God.
One of them is one of the other members of our team who now lives in Houston. Is named Anthony. Probably the closest thing as I have to a little brother. And there's actually an EVP that when Kim dowses at a location, we'll use her dowsing rods to tell us where to place like a static recorder. We ended up placing a static recorder on that piano that was in that corner, in that front room. Well, it used to be the drawing room, I guess.
Right.
And you know that piano was all out of tune. It still worked to a certain degree. We not only got an EVP of multiple key strikes
When nobody was in the building.
when nobody was in the building, and there's no wildlife inside that piano. We also got an EVP of a spirit calling out my name and Anthony's name.
When you guys were outside and we were up at the cemetery.
Yeah. So there was nobody in the building. Yeah, I mean, it's just that place is crazy.
Yeah, there's a moment in that same room that happened to me that really shook me. Was I was in there and I had a laser grid set up. The whole room was lasered up, you know, and I had the grid set up. And the idea is that we know that the shadows will break the lasers.
Right.
So all of a sudden, I was standing at the end of the room, and across down near the piano, you saw the shadow figure come and it starts breaking the lasers. As it does this, the ghost box, we had it going, and the ghost box starts going murder, 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 murder. And, you know, as this thing crosses the room, you want to talk about freaky. I mean, you know, it creeps us all out. There's just no explanation. It's on. If you ever see the Morse Mill, the film, you'll see that it's in there. You'll actually see when it happens. But you rocked my world a little bit.
Yeah, and that mirror in that front room is what creeped me out the most.
Yeah.
And I took multiple pictures of it. We never got any anomalous data to come out of it, but just the way that you almost wonder what that mirror has seen in the time that it's been there. You know what I mean? It's just that's the haunting feeling I got was from that mirror. Just the way that mirror looked.
See, we were lucky, you guys. We were in there early.
Yeah.
People that are going in there now, they're getting told urban legends.
Right.
Right. If you see go look at some of the stuff, and you'll hear the stuff that's being told. The stories that they've come up with are nothing of fact. They're all made up. You know, this person's here and that person's there, and they call this ghost this, and the history behind this, and it's all BS.
Right.
You know, and it's so funny to watch how you know to be a part of that and to see how the investigative body takes over and causes the urban legend to happen on the building over a while.
Well, it's like there's this little girl on the second floor, and she's wearing this dress, and her name is Rachel, and this guy is here, and his name is Ben, and blah, 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 blah. And if you go to the website, it says, still to this day, that no team has ever been able to spend an entire night in there. And we both, being from St. Louis, hear the BS meter go off loud and clear.
Right.
Because
I spent a whole week there.
Right.
You know.
Well, and
it's BS.
the only
I stood outside for a second. Now I got to go back inside. Welcome to the city, folks.
at least the Harleys are there.
But yeah, they're saying nobody's ever been able to spend a night because we left early because it was that quiet. I know teams that have spent nights there, weekends there. You spend an entire week there, so for it to claim that it is so terribly haunted and active that nobody can stay there is just garbage.
It is part of the urban legend that is built.
Yeah.
But we also know the owner who started that urban legend, so.
Yeah. And once again, I'll challenge anybody to go sit in that room back there behind that fireplace for an hour by yourself. Go for it. Just don't sit in there and start yelling and screaming at the dark, or it'll bite back. That's all I can tell you.
It's, you know, you push this, it'll push back.
Oh yeah.
You know, and I said, And I worry that, certain people are encouraging that to happen now.
Yes.
Just because they want to get more hype to their building, which happens.
Yeah.
But, I worry about that. I worry about the safety of some people because it does get violent. I mean, it will scratch, it will push. It likes to push you on those basement steps as well. I mean,
Yeah.
so they can easily be pushed down them.
And and that's something you guys were talking about. Everybody from Missouri is above average debunkers. Well, those steps are not only rickety, but we did look at them in the daylight. The steps are actually, they go from being angled up to angled down. So some people think they've been getting pushed to a certain degree, and it may or may not be happening, but it may just be the steps. Because if you don't take that one step at a time, you try to just walk down it like it's concrete steps. No, because you get the vertigo from the steps not being.
That bottom section's also cut off, and it's bouncing off a brick, off a cinder block.
And our friend Anthony is as big as I am, so we learned real fast that there's certain stairways that we have to take one at a time. Structurally, we have to let it. Just one of us is going to go down one at a time.
Right.
But like we found when we were there, we found a bunch of like bloody rags and fake looking stuff that was up on top of the freezers that were down there in the kitchen. I mean, it was silly.
But they're also letting people now go in there, and if they're there for the night or the weekend, they're allowing them to drink.
Yeah,
that becomes a whole another issue for all of us.
Yeah, I mean, that is the most irresponsible thing that anyone could do. Absolutely. There's just, for so many reasons, especially in a building like that, that has its own non-paranormal dangers into it.
That's right.
Sooner or later, somebody is going to get hurt. Somebody is going to fall down one of those holes or fall through the floor. That is one of those buildings that you have to be on your toes at all times because there is dangers there that are non-paranormal. They're structural dangers. And then you add the paranormal to that, and you start adding alcohol to it too, and you just got to wonder just how safe of an environment that would be.
Well, and then even just the area itself. If you go past the ice house across the street, there's a river. There's a steep bank and a river that rushes through.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, okay, you're not in the house. You decide you're going to go see what's across the street, and you fall in. If you're drunk, you're not going to have the wits about you to get out.
I mean, you walk down to the bridge at the other end, it goes off into nowhere.
Right.
Right, or you walk up to the cemetery, but you have to walk on the highway.
Yeah.
Well, and Stephen, I have to ask you, because we've never talked about Morse Mills before. Did you have like a huge... I know when we were there, we had at least 8 or 9 vehicles that would circle that little... Because where Morse Mills at is actually on that triangle of land. We probably had 8 or 9 vehicles that probably circled us 2 or 3 times before they drive off. Like locals that were like, who the hell's that?
Mm-hmm.
We got a bunch of
during
that.
the time that we all were there.
Yeah.
They were real curious at what was going on. They didn't like us being there. And Morse Mill itself, the town of Morse Mill is very small. The town of Morse Mill is very poor. The town of Morse Mill makes a lot of its money from methamphetamine.
Yes, it does.
When you're there. So, it's like, how dangerous is just the townsfolk there? Well, they don't want you to be there, that's for damn sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, the town of Morse Mills kind of gives hillbillies a good name.
I think I actually told Anthony once while we were there we needed to ghost hunt faster because I just heard banjo music. I think I actually said that while we were there. But
yeah, they do not want you there. At least they used to not. I don't know if it's the same way now.
I bet over the
It's been
last...
a while since I've been out there.
Because from what we've been able to gather, he's been pretty productive as far as getting teams in there every weekend.
Mm-hmm.
So I bet you they've got used to the traffic of people.
But they got, the thing is they got some team that's working out there now.
Yeah.
And, okay, it's like, call BS for what it's worth. But, you know, they're the ones that are giving the ghosts these silly little names and making up the history the way it's being made up.
Absolutely.
You know, and the funny thing is that one time he was actually telling people that the woman that had lived there before was dead. Now, this woman had a tremendous amount of information on the hotel. She actually had the books that showed actually who had all stayed there, at what time they stayed there. She actually had one of the pictures of Charles Lindbergh that's never been seen.
Right.
You know, so when ghost hunters went out there, you know, I get this call and it's like, well, they're saying they can't find the information of who stayed there, and I'm like, well, they need to go to her and they need to ask her. I said, oh, but I forgot. You're telling everybody she's dead now, right?
Yeah, because he didn't want the information to be mixed up, and the team that you were talking about that is now out there working out there is the same group that I watched get scratched.
Right.
Route 66 Paranormal.
Yeah.
I'll say their name. I mean, hey, way to go, guys! You got some free advertisement. Route 66 Paranormal. Yeah.
I didn't say that. Steven didn't say that. That's all Eric.
Hey, come on, step up. I'm from Texas.
Yeah, I mean, I have no problem saying that. I mean, you know, it's you know, it's like keep the history for what it is.
Yeah.
Keep the history true. Don't make up things and don't make up stories.
And at the very least, do
it. The truth of the matter is the building. You didn't need to do that in the first place.
Yeah, and do it out of respect for the spirits.
Well, it has a great history to begin with. Why ruin it with a bunch of garbage?
Well, you know, they're trying to get away from the Beulah history, not the Beulah history, the Bertha history. They're trying to get away from that for some reason, and I'm not quite sure exactly why.
She was the first, one of the first female.
She was the first American female serial killer on record.
Now, why would you try to get rid of that history? I mean, it blows my mind. You know, that kind. I mean, this woman killed 23 human beings that they know of.
Between 17 months and 72 years, and even when she was tried for the last 3, technically she still got off because they put her in Missouri Mental Hospital number 2. She never went to jail.
And the thing is you know what she was allowed to do that?
Whatever she
cook.
Yeah.
This is how she killed. She killed her victims by putting arsenic in the food because she was such a good cook.
Yeah.
She you know, and so they made her a cook. They tried her, and she was in jail, and she was tried in Union, Missouri, same place where the Union Screening House is, by the way. You know, it's just give you an idea of how creepy that whole place is down there.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, and it's like, why would you try to hide that? I mean, we had an expert on her tell the story, tell exactly what had happened there, what she had done there, and everything. And all that information was given to them. And I mean, this guy is a historian, and that's what he does for a living.
Right.
And you know, he's very, very good. And you know, it just blows my mind that they try to get away from that. It's like, okay, you're taking a good part of the history away. However, you're going to talk about Al Capone, you're going to talk about these other things that you can no longer prove because the woman that's got the evidence to show that, you're telling everybody she's dead.
Right. The fact that Jesse James, Charles Lindbergh, and Al Capone are all in the hotel registry, we can't show that anymore, but we're going to promote that. But you can prove that this woman is a serial killer and basically got away with it. But we don't want you to know about that.
Well, see, that's depressing.
And I said, listen, if you want the history on this place, this is where you're going to find it. This is where you're going to find that yes, Al Capone was there. That yes, some of the James gang was there. That Charles Lindbergh, that Clara Bow was there. I mean, this is the woman who has that evidence. I'm like, however, he's telling everybody that she's dead, and she's not dead. You know, so they were given the right, but you know, information. But at that point, you know, they went from they were going to do a 2-hour special on the place to just doing a 1 hour because he was jacking them around so much they didn't know what was true and what was not.
Right. Which is really sad because, like we said, the history on the place is amazing in its own accord. It doesn't need anything, and it doesn't need anything changed to make it better. It was great to begin with.
Yeah.
And as far as
building that I think is getting tarnished now.
Right, but as far as a paranormal spot, that's like one of the top peaks of, you know, Kalamazoo or wherever as far as the paranormal goes.
Yeah. It even had a swimming pool on the 3rd floor, didn't it? It had a swimming pool. We were there. Did it have the swimming pool when you were there?
On the 3rd floor.
On the 3rd floor.
I missed the swimming pool on the 3rd floor.
It was a kiddie pool.
It was a kiddie pool. It said on the
all
front.
right. You're blowing my mind because I'm like, dude, no.
Yeah, there was a key in one of the rooms, one of the outside rooms up there on the 3rd floor. Not the big open part.
Right.
He had
I don't know what he was doing with that.
Yeah.
I don't want to know.
Thought I'd freak you out with that a little bit, but yeah. But I mean, once again, it's one of those, like you said, it's one of those locations. If it's not tarnished, if he hasn't done some structural work to that place, it's going to be dangerous by now.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially with the winters. Especially
we
the
were
winters.
there in 2009. That was, you know, they were talking about 5-6 years ago now.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, he hasn't done the structural work that needed to be done. Well, you know, the whole idea when I first started talking to him, and you know, I said, okay, let's do a film. The whole idea was, okay, let's do this, you know, and bring ghosts and groups out, and it was supposed to be for the renovation of that building.
Right.
That building was supposed to be totally renovated. Now we're 5-6 years later, and it's not.
You know,
Which means all the money from all the groups that go in there every weekend, and they pay, I mean, it's $600 at least. You know, they're paying, you know, it's like every weekend
35
for 5 years, and the building's still not done. Nothing has been done to it. I feel like I was taking advantage of it, if you really want to know the truth.
Well, we were there a week or so after you were there, and we actually caught him talking to one of his friends saying that he was going to take the paranormal for everything it was worth and then have the place tore down. He had no intentions on it. He just came in and threw around a saw or banged on the wall with a hammer to look like he was working when the teams came in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. I mean, he was, you know, he really felt like, you know, I feel like he's taken advantage of a lot of us. Because all of us that have gone in, he has given the story of, well, I'm redoing this. All the money that you give me goes to the renovation of the building and to keep the building alive. Well, he was full of shit. And it's not the truth.
Yeah.
Well, he's also the one, when you got there, would tell you, I'm a non-believer, but then tell you 12 ghost stories.
Yeah, well, you know, and he was afraid to be in the building.
Yeah.
And he's a character. I don't know what else to say, but, you know, so beware. And that's there's a good lesson here.
Yeah.
Beware when someone tells you that they're doing something for renovation. Make damn sure that it's being renovated. If that's what your thing is, and that's why you're going to these places, you want to help a building out, and if that's why you're going to a certain place because you want to help in the renovation, make sure it's happening, because in that case, it surely was not.
Yeah.
But it is a great location. It's just the owner we're not overly thrilled with, but the building itself is wonderful.
Don't judge the dead by the living.
Right.
Right. That's just it. And, you know, contact one of us if you ever go, and we'll give you the real story.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Real quick, people can find your books and stuff at StevenLaChance.com.
StevenLaChance.com. We're going to actually start selling the books online in July.
Okay.
People have been bugging me through this for a long time, so we're going to start selling, you know, autographed copies through the website, and that's StevenLaChance.com. Now, blessed are the link. It comes out September 8th, but you can reserve your copy on Amazon right now. And Amazon is guaranteeing the lowest price, so I don't know what that means or whatever, but so go ahead and reserve your copy, because I'm going to tell you, a lot of you people, you know, with the Uninvited, the Uninvited wasn't supposed to hit until September 8th, but the people who had bought it early on Amazon actually got it about a week before everybody else.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm. So you'll get to read it sooner, because I'm sure it's going to go the same way.
Yeah.
But I can't wait for you guys to read it. It's an awesome book.
Yeah, we can't wait for
I
it
wrote
to come out.
You know, this is the first book that I can say that I really liked that I wrote.
Yeah, he wasn't thrilled with
Probably
it.
going to suck, right?
Right. No.
No, it's really good. I mean, anybody that's read the book so far, I've had readers that have read it. I've had the radio shows that have read it. I had one radio show that read it. Anybody that's read it, people that have read The Uninvited love it. People that didn't read The Uninvited, after they read it, want to read The Uninvited. Everybody talks about how good it is and how it stands on its own, which was really important when I wrote it. I wanted it to be a book that stood on its own. But I also wanted it to be, the sequel, which it is. But I think you guys are really going to like it.
Yeah.
I don't consider it a sequel. I just consider it a continuance. Because most...
Yeah, I guess it's the way, that's how I describe it, is they call it the terrifying sequel. Well, it just continues. If I would have had it my way, I would have put The Uninvited in this book together and sold it that way. But they wouldn't let me do it. So what they said is, okay, Steven, what we'll do is we'll sell a box set down the road. Okay, well, that kind of kept me quiet. Then I was like, all right, we'll sell a box set down the road.
Right.
Yeah.
But we all know that if you add the word sequel to anything, it usually comes out not as good as the original. So it's not your sequel, it's a continuance thereof.
Yeah, I think this is better actually than the first book.
Yeah.
You see that?
And there's a lot of people that might argue with me that later because there's so many people that love the first book. But I think this one's better in some way. I think the writing is more solid.
Yeah.
Well,
and Steven, as much as I hate to do this, we got to go, man.
This time always goes by so fast.
I know we've believe it or not, we started 2 minutes early, and we're 22 minutes over. So we've actually gone almost an hour and a half almost.
Wow.
Every time we get together.
Well, that's because we never stick to a subject. We tend to go everywhere we want to.
And the next time that we're ever at the same convention and we have a table and you have a table, we're just going to make sure our tables are right next to each other. That way we don't have to.
Together, so
because
that way we can catch up on everything.
we would just piss everybody off yelling back and forth across the room.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's how it would happen.
Yeah.
So, we're doing some really cool things with the book launches, though. So keep your ears and eyes open.
Always.
It's not going to be your normal book launch. We're going to some unique places, and the actual book launch party is going to be available to anyone that wants to come. And I can't tell you anything more yet.
Well, I'm telling you, if you get into the People's Hospital, give me a call, and I will definitely.
Oh, man, you want to go? You want to go with me?
Absolutely.
There's likely we'll come across some hobos, but oh well.
Hey, you know what?
Just take some extra change and throw it on the ground, and you'll be fine.
With the St. Louis attitudes, we'll scare them off. We'll handle it.
Yeah,
especially if you're hanging around with this.
That's a scary building.
Hey, Steven, you're going in there with a Southside girl. She's not scared of much.
But it's still got a lot of the original equipment still in it, and it's been closed for years. So I mean, it's a place to really go see.
I'm telling you, you get in there. I will. If I got to be your roadie, I will carry your bag. I am not kidding.
My goal is, now that I'm here back home, is to really start showing some of the true haunted places in St. Louis, not
awesome.
The ones that you've already seen. They're cool. Let Mansion was cool. It is cool. I've been there. But there's a lot of these unsung heroes out there that I'd like to show.
Mineral Springs Hotel over in Alton.
Oh, I've been there millions of times. Yes.
Yes.
That's one of them too. I would like to do something that.
The meat locker.
So, there's a lot of craziness that get ready because it's coming your way.
Go to the females pool and the meat locker.
I've been there both.
Yeah, that's some creepy stuff down there, man. Wild
know
stuff.
where I had the most activity in the Mineral Springs Hotel? In the apartment upstairs.
Pearl's room?
I was lucky the apartment was empty, the whole apartment upstairs. And that apartment upstairs is the most haunted.
The one on the corner?
Than any other place in the Mineral Springs Hotel.
Pearl's room, the one on the corner?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
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 Yep.
Wow. Yeah, we probably really should never play together. We would probably get in a lot of trouble.
No, we should.
Yeah, we'd probably get in a lot of trouble. Alton, again, the YWCA in Alton, too.
Really?
Yeah, the YWCA, that's just like, it's almost across the street from the Mineral Springs Hotel, up on the hill there, and it's haunted as well. So,
Yeah.
But see,
it's haunted by a little boy apparition in the pool area that likes to talk.
Yeah.
But see, we could go to Fast Eddie's for shrimp and burgers before we go.
That's what we should do. We'll go to Fast Eddie's, and then we'll go to Mineral Springs, and then we'll get to the YWCA.
And well, what I'll try to do by the time you get all that set up, Steve, I'll try to get another Harley. That way we can come riding up there on a Harley.
All right, you stay here with me in my house.
There we go. Hey, see, now it's covered.
Yeah, we got it covered.
Wow. Steven, once again, thank you so much for coming on. And as always, sir, it's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Always.
Well, it's great to talk to you guys, too. I miss you a lot.
Yeah, well, hey, you let me get us signed off here, and you stick around for a minute because I got something I want to talk to you about. But
absolutely.
Everybody else out there, if you're going out investigating this weekend, be careful. Don't provoke. Take care of yourself.
And if you're in the South right now, take a lot of Gatorade and water because it's hot, it's humid, and we don't want you dehydrating, especially with Mother's Day.
That's right. And to all you mothers out there, happy day on Sunday.
And to all you single fathers for doing double duty, happy Mother's Day.
Yep.
Thank you, Jim.
Good night, guys.